all of you, our wonderful viewers watching us from SOA TV and also our social media handles this lovely afternoon. I believe that God has kept you. God has been by your side. And I'm your host this afternoon. My name is Pastor Mrs. Julie B. Akama, and I'm here with Royalty Divine Women's Show, the segment of, where I'm not alone on set, as I usually say it. And I want to welcome everyone that is watching me from all quarters of our country, Kenya, and also on social media, which runs across the world. Karibuni sana, please feel at the feet of Jesus. And I know this afternoon is another opportunity whereby God has given you a chance to make, His word known to you, to bring you wisdom and to bring you knowledge and understanding in various areas of your life. And so this afternoon, I'm here with a guest that is not new on this set, that is also not new on the social media handles. And she's going to introduce herself again before you get to know her name offhand. She'll do the introduction. And today again also she's a specialist on teenagers and the youth. And this afternoon we'll be discussing a very, very deep topic. Very deep. And this is one of the topics that has impacted or affected or infected many men, many women to become who they are from the traumatized child in them. And so I've brought your way the topic. The topic this afternoon is the traumatized child in you. And also you can also look at it and say the childhood traumas. So Esther is a professional on that area, and she'll be able to assist us on 1, 2, 3 as we go on in the program on how to heal the traumatized child, why the traumatized child happens, what is childhood trauma, and all that. Please let's put our hands together and welcome Esther as she picks it on from there. Karibu sana. Nisha kusemea jina.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I've happened to mention your name and had said you'll mention it.
Okay.
But you can go ahead and just mention it once again.
Okay.
Also, just tell us your professionalism, and what you are good at. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you so much for the invite once more. I'm so blessed and honored to be here.
Right.
As you have heard, my name is Esther. Mm-hmm. Esther is born again, a child of God. Mm-hmm. Professionally, Esther is a counselor, a trainer, a mentor, with areas surrounding adolescent and youth and parenting.
Wow.
I'm so passionate about that area. Just seeing parents and their children getting along and living a full life.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm extremely happy to be here and looking forward to this very, very important topic.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
And before we even began on, we went live on set. We were discussing, and she was saying this is one of the topics that she can be woken up at 3 a.m. and she handles.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's one of a topic that she's really passionate about, and she's going to bring us to light professionally. At times, it's good to have experience.
Yes.
It's good to have some knowledge, but also it's also very important to have professional know-how. Okay? Because there are some things, if we could treat ourselves, we couldn't be going to doctors.
Yeah.
If we could teach ourselves, we couldn't be going to schools. All right?
Yeah.
So that's why now our professionals come in. And also in the kingdom of God, it's important that we begin to embrace that. Because like in the area of the topic we are about to handle, the traumatized child in you, it is one of the areas that I personally believe that even affects marriages.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
That even affects a full-blown adult man, a full-blown adult woman.
Yes.
From the way they grew up, it impacts who they become, even in marriage, even in careers, even in our society, and in life in general. And that is why we are having so many good people. Let me look at it positively. And also we are having very many people who are wounded.
Yes.
And the goodness can be transferred into the next generation. And the wounding also can be transferred into the next generation.
Yes.
So since in church, I look at church, quote unquote, as a spiritual hospital.
Yes.
We need to get to the root of why things happen the way they happen, and why things, go to the deeper root. Not only marriages are not working nowadays. Why? Okay? Children nowadays have become so unruly. Why? Why is it? What is the root cause of the unruliness? Parents have become so reckless and careless and out of parenting. Okay? Why? Whenever you get the why, solving the problem always becomes very easy and very manageable. And now you will be able to cut the root, okay, of the tree from the problem and disconnect it.
Yes.
Okay, so this afternoon, Esther is here to give us the professional view of understanding really what happens, what is the childhood trauma. That's one of the things we'll start with. Number 2, what triggers it, what makes you realize, or how can you be able to notice that I think I'm suffering some childhood traumas that are in me that I need to solve to be able to become a better man, a better woman, and also to bring up healthy children, healthy adolescents, healthy youth, who will in turn become very healthy adults, and also flow into the parenting with the same good spirit. That's what we want to pass down. So maybe just to bring you on course, would you tell us what is childhood trauma?
So I think before I go to the definition of childhood trauma, I wanted to give a foundation on what you have said about the professional and the experiences. So that now I can marry as in why this is so important and why I'm so passionate about it. So on the experience part, I think my journey towards knowing about trauma, the awareness, came through my own experience. So I got to a point where I hit rock bottom, as in every form that I was standing on collapsed. And then I was like facing life with a lot of pain, a lot of wounded, a lot of resentment. Then looking back, I realized, now at the rock bottom now, I realized, wow, I really need now to get rid of this pain. Sometimes pain becomes so unbearable that you get to a point where now you have to know the origin of the pain and deal with it. So that's how now I started the journey towards now unpacking trauma, knowing more about trauma through my own experience. Then now from that and the professional bit is where I'm able now to talk about this topic. So trauma actually has its origin from the Greek language, which means it's a wound, as in kidonda. It's an emotional wound. Okay, so that's trauma. So when we say childhood trauma, it means that it's a wound from childhood that was as a result of your upbringing. So things happened, experiences happened that shaped, that wounded you, but now the trauma is not what happened to you. There is a guy who talks about it. He's called Gabo Mate. He's very passionate about it. He says that trauma is not what happened to you. Trauma is what is happening to you now as a result of what happened to you when you were a child. Does it make sense? So trauma,
it does.
So trauma is you're experiencing it now out of what happened to you when you were a child. It could be anywhere from, actually even from the womb up to any time growing up, even up to teenage.
That's what you mentioned last time.
Yes. The messages are being communicated right from the womb. So a child can suffer trauma even when they are still
in the womb.
Wow. Yes. So that is where trauma, that is where you begin passing messages like you're worthy, you're good, you're bad, we love you, that we don't like you, you are an accident, such things. So that trauma, that wound is what now manifests when you're an adult. And the characteristic of a wound is it can either be raw, as in it can either be a fresh wound, so meaning that it's bleeding. So an emotional wound that is bleeding will show in terms of how behavior manifests or how the emotions come in. So it could be anything from anger, resentment, bitterness, all those things. It can show in terms of emotion. We also have the other wound that is normally covered by a scar tissue, but once you rub it, you can easily scar, as in the scar tissue is hard, but once you rub the scar tissue, you can open. So there are also those traumas that once you rub, it can open. For example, when you are a child, you got the message that you are not good enough. So you are talking about marriages and partners and relationships. Right now, you meet a partner who gives you the message that you're not good enough. So the same way you felt when you were growing up as a child, that you are
now awakened.
It's like now you're doing that, as in the experiences coming back to you again when you are an adult, maybe 20 or 30 or 40 years. That's why sometimes you find someone telling someone, stop being such a baby. Can you grow up? You've had those such expressions. Actually, the past, when you're telling someone to grow up or to stop being childish, actually you are. It sounds derogatory, but you are right. Because the behavior they are depicting, maybe they are throwing a tantrum that they threw when they were 2 or 3 years old, but now at 30 or 40 they are also throwing a tantrum. So in a nutshell, that is trauma. So we just know that it's a wound, it's an emotional wound. But what you suffered in childhood now comes to manifest when you are an adult. Yes. So that is trauma.
And it runs deep. It really does run deep. Like someone throwing tantrums can be seen as normal. Okay, maybe she's just angry, or maybe he's just angry. Like I had a case I was handling this week on Monday of a man, a married, the one that called me is the wife. The man now is the one that throws tantrums hadi anataka kubembelezwa. Yani, the man walks out of the house, anaenda anakaa kwa baridi saa 9 usiku. Hey. And the wife now is used to doing that, so he likes it. So I was like, why do you do that?
He's recreating now his childhood. So that's why they normally say in every woman there is a young girl.
And in every
existing and in every man there is a young boy. So for that case of that man, he's just recreating what happened in his childhood. And now the wife is like taking the place of the mother. So probably the mother, when he throws a tantrum, the mother would go and pamper him. So he wants that also. But you see now, he's an adult, he's a man. You cannot go recreating the same things you did as a child now too. When you are an adult.
Especially when you're married. Because I was like, is that what you do? She told me that's what I do. If he's angry and he's throwing tantrums, I calm him down. Kama ametoka, like that time he left the house at 2.
You go look for him.
And she was like, where has this guy gone? The car keys are still here. He didn't wear, like he's leaving the house. So she goes and starts looking for him. And I'm part of uko nje bila sweater. Let's go back to the house.
Wow. Like, baby. Why are you outside in the cold?
An absolute baby in a full glow. He has 4 children.
It doesn't matter. You see, and then you see when it comes down to relationships and marriage, you attract the familiar. So for me, I'm most likely to be attracted to a man who reminds me of my father. Now, if my father was, that's why you find someone had an alcoholic dad and gets married to an alcoholic man. Because that's familiar. That's how the human brain is wired. We want to seek the familiar. We don't want change. Okay? And if someone healthy comes, you're going to sabotage that relationship because that's not familiar. That's not what you're used to. So unless you have done the work and healed, you will always attract your past. So in that case, you were saying it's just a recreation of how the home was. If you go deeper, you'll find that probably that's what the mom used to do. And if you go deeper, you'll find that probably there was no father to instill discipline and structure to this man, so he could get away with behaving like that. Okay? Or if the father was there, he was passive and dormant. That's the thing.
And now the question is, talking on those terms, why should the wife? Is it possible that probably the wife is a firstborn? Okay, from wherever she's coming from. and so she's used to the responsibility of taking care.
Yes.
You know, maybe the
younger ones. Or if she may not be a firstborn, but she may be the one in the family who was like a rescuer. You know, there are rescuers in families.
Yes.
So people are dysfunctional, but there is this one person who decided, wow, I can't be dysfunctional, so I'm the one who will be rescuing my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother.
Bringing order.
Yes, bringing order. So she took on the role of a of a rescuer or a fixer.
Yeah.
And she got attracted to a man who also recreated her, the pattern in her family. So if you go back also to the lady's past, you'll find that that is what she grew up. She was always rescuing and fixing situations.
Because I was like, no, you're empowering a bad...
Enabling. Actually,
you are actually
she's an
enabling a bad behavior in this man, which now you're not making him any better. Akienda nje haoni hajavaa sweta. Na amekasirikia nini. You're getting that thing cannot be solved in the house at 2 a.m. Really? I was like, you need to stop that first of all. Secondly, this is a full grown man. You guys should be able to, you should be in the one always now like having to really beg him for, it was a long story. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the thing is, there was a lot of tantrums. And a lot of enabling from
the woman now.
From her side. You've mentioned that the childhood trauma, there are two kinds of wounds. The open wound and
the scar tissue wound, as in the one that is closed. So you find that there's someone who will obviously exhibit signs of trauma. Yeah. But there's someone else who is so quiet and subtle and polite. But once the trigger comes, as in an experience or a circumstance that reminds them of what they went through, then they blow up. That's how you find people having those anger outbursts. As if someone did something out of the ordinary and you're like, but he's so polite, he's so quiet, or she doesn't talk much. But she's been repressing the anger and the experience.
And those ones are worse off.
Yeah, and that is also an inner of childhood trauma, because most of the time when you're growing up with parents who put you through the trauma, they try to suppress your emotions. So don't express anger, don't express frustration, don't be too excited, because the parent mwenyewe is also
going through
their own share of.
So they're like, why
why are you bothering me? Can you just be calm and quiet? So the child is used to suppressing
their emotions.
Yes, of which emotions are supposed to be felt and expressed. So that is also now another side of the scar tissue trauma. Where it's just hiding. It's like what you normally say, waiting to explode. Or a volcano waiting to
just
erupt anytime.
Yes. And that one, for me, I think that is even worse off. Yes. Having to deal with someone who is always quiet, but they have issues. I've met so many people like that. You find they are so calm, but what they ni wale wanagoja tu kuchukua kisu and stab.
Those are the people who commit the suicide, they break things, they harm people, because you have been suppressing the anger, the frustration, whatever the negative emotions are. Then at a trigger, it explodes. So the stimuli versus how you're reacting, the response, they are not matching. So that's why you find someone says, I just did a small thing, I don't understand how they overreact.
I'd like you to express like the signs. How does childhood trauma manifest?
So I'll try to break it down in points.
And here we are talking about childhood trauma now, that we are talking about an adult or either an adolescent. Let's look at it from the point of an adolescent into a youth, and then again into into an adult. How does it manifest?
All right. So how you can, maybe I'll try and give 5 points of just the telltale signs of how you can be able to detect or diagnose that someone has childhood trauma. Although the clear diagnosis would be done better by a professional, but just to spot for maybe your child or a relative of yourself, or a husband that probably what I'm dealing with is not just bad behavior, it's trauma. So the first one is normally like loss of self, as in disconnection from the self. So that is the first one. And you can be able, what we normally call authenticity. So a human being is supposed to be authentic, as in the real self. But when you find that there is a fake persona, or there is the ideal self and the real self, there is a very big disconnect. That is when you can now tell that probably this person suffered trauma. Because what trauma does to you is that it kills the real you. The real
That's the first thing it does, right?
Yes, it kills the real you. So as you're growing up, you find that at one point you can't even tell who you are. So someone would ask you, tell us about yourself. The question that is usually asked, especially during interviews, you can't even tell who you are.
Right.
Or you have this child, as they were growing up, they were playful, outgoing, talkative. But as they get, especially into the teenage, that's when you find out children withdrawing. They are always in the room. They don't want to talk to anybody. You know, you never know what goes on with them. So you would say, when my child was growing up, they were so artistic. They were into sports, football. They loved interacting. But at a particular point, I can't tell
where they disappeared,
who my child is, or this man or this woman. I can't tell. Even parents of older children, you'd find, older adults, you find a parent maybe at 60 saying, when my son or daughter were young, they were, like, I know one who says the son is now 40. So she says that when the son, and I know the son person, when the son was younger, he was artistic, as in he could draw. He could draw vile unakaa, vile nakaa, he drew cars. He was also very hands-on, very good with his hands. As in, he's the boys who fix cars, you know.
Clean cars.
When he's bought for a toy car, he'll undo it and dismantle it and bring it back together, and it will work. Kind of a curious child. But now when you look at the 40-year-old man now, he's a shadow of himself. Like, he doesn't want to do anything. He's abusing substances. He's always on the phone. He can't keep a job. He can't keep a relationship. So that is a good, clear example of childhood trauma. Is in somewhere along the way, because of the trauma, the pain, the wounding, you lost yourself. You don't know who you are anymore. So.
And is it necessarily, does it really, like for him, there's the way the mom knew him, and it was what you have described.
Yes.
And then along the way he lost it. Does it really have to be parental related or parental connected, or it could be also teenage bullying in schools and such stuff?
It could be.
The trauma, the childhood trauma, does it have just to be family related?
No, it could also be any caregivers, especially now in the old system where we grew up with uncles, aunties, any of the nurturers, teachers can make a child to have trauma, like teachers making derogatory, bad comments that can really wound you. An uncle,
where do you think you'll go?
Even a neighbor, you know. You know, it's anybody. It doesn't have to be the parent. But
I think that should be very clear.
But of course, now because the parent is the primary caregiver, and the child looks at the parent like almost a demigod, the parent is the one who's likely to injure the child more than. And another thing also, ma'am, if you have reinforced your children's beliefs and self-esteem. So sometimes someone out there will say something, but because mom or dad or whoever already told me, have already reinforced that, so it won't affect them as much. Now the worst part comes when mom and dad, or mom or dad, are already beating down the child. Then they go out there, the world is already beating on them. So you see now the child has no
anywhere to run to
or
hide.
Yes. So of course it's other people, but the parent is the one who is most likely to injure.
And that is where again also it's very important on that note. There are many who can cause the childhood trauma.
Yes.
But also it is very important for you as a parent to always reinforce the beliefs and the values and the self-esteem on a child. Be very hands-on, and that is where another place whereby most parents even don't notice.
Yes.
You see? Because in the case of that mama, it could be an old woman or whatever. She should have noticed that there's something, this boy is losing something in himself, and then handle it probably before it went out of hand.
But now you see, this lady and probably the father were also in their own, were also going their own stress, through their own stresses.
Yeah, so we're cool.
They are oblivious of even what is happening to their children, because if you are not present with yourself, you cannot be present with
The
child
children.
or any other people. So that's why you're saying the first sign is just someone who has lost themselves. They have lost the authenticity that is every human being.
Right.
And then now, number two,
Right.
now they also dissociate from other people or disconnect.
Yeah.
That's why you find now someone has trouble relating with other family members, with friends in school. So they always have trouble. They don't have friends in school, or they're always having trouble in their relationships. So connection with them is very, very, or what we call attachment. Attachment is a basic need for every human being. So once a child is not able to attach well at home, it means that they will not be able to attach well out there, in school,
anywhere.
in the neighborhood. So they're always the ones who, like what you're saying, they're always the ones being bullied, being insulted. Other kids don't want to play with them, or they are the bully themselves now. So after being bullied, they decide, wow,
enough is enough.
Now I'll be the bully. I'll defend myself. And then now at home, there's no that nurturing and grounding, and so they don't have a safe space to go and say, like, so and so told me this, so and so bullied me. So they repress all that. They suppress all that. So later now it comes, it's now a wound now. Now it comes to be a wound that will be erupting maybe at the workplace, in their romantic relationships. That's why when you go to social media, you find a lot of bile and negativity. That is so much of childhood trauma. It means that people have been suppressing that that bile, and now because social media, you can do it without
no one knowing
or no one telling you are a bad boy, or you can spew all the bile there with. Yes.
That's amazing. I'm loving the show, and I'm getting so much insight and depth into what our guest is telling us this afternoon. And we are going on a short break. Please don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I believe you've sipped on something as we had gone on our short break, and today's topic is intriguing. It's interesting. We're talking about childhood trauma, the traumatized child in you, and that is the child that we are trying to heal. And when we talk about the child, we are not talking about children only. We're also talking about adolescents. We're talking about the youth. We're talking about teenagers. And we are talking about adults, that is daddy and mommy back at home. So we had already talked about in part A, we had talked about what is childhood trauma, and right now we are handling on how does childhood trauma manifest. You had mentioned 2 points.
Yes, I
maybe you run through them so that they flow. One.
So the first, I said you're disconnected from yourself, from your authentic self.
Right.
Number 2, you're also disconnected from others, the people around you. Then number 3,
that's isolation.
Yes, you're isolated from, as in you find it difficult to form relationships because of the trust issues and the abandonment issues and all. Number 3 is prolonged pain, as in a lifetime of pain, whether it's emotional or physical. So that is the way that you can know that you probably went through trauma that needs to be resolved now. Yes.
Prolonged pain. Yes. Talk about it a little deeper.
So there is emotional pain.
Right.
Yes. So let's start with emotional pain. So you are always in pain. But you have to be very alert to be able to recognize the pain. But pain comes in many forms. It can be anger, bitterness, resentment, as in you're constantly unhappy. Everything is negative. Nothing in life pleases you or makes sense. Okay, so that is on the emotional pain. Okay, then you can have physical pain. So once emotional pain metamorphizes, whatever changes, it now they always say that the body does not lie. Okay, so it can now form into physical pain. That's how you find that someone can have pain. Yes, and sometimes even the pain, once you go to the hospital, you have had someone telling you, I went to the hospital, they did all the tests and they did not find any particular
issue.
Yeah, they don't find malaria, typhoid. So most of that is usually psychological.
And that's when they run to church.
Yes, yeah, that is when you find people, someone saying that I was even done scans, MRI, but they didn't find any particular illness that I have. So that's when now they come to
for prayer.
Which is important. Prayer is important.
Yeah.
But now we also say that you also embrace the psychological counseling, because now as you and Daddy are praying for them, you also need to sit down and also now unpack the trauma.
That's right.
So that now they can apply the spiritual principles on still, and also the psychological principles, mixing everything. When you're in trouble, you are not selecting.
No,
you know, like what I was telling you in my case, I applied everything. I came here, I was prayed for, I was, everything.
Right.
I did the psychological work. So anywhere that you need help, you do it holistically. Yes.
So you've only mentioned on pain, on the emotional bit, and then you went to the physical bit.
Then I went to the physical bit, yes.
Yeah. Is there the psychological that that can come with the pain? Of course, yes. Right.
What do you mean by the psychological?
Psychological. If there is emotional pain,
yes,
there is physical pain, and the psychological, which now that goes to the mental.
The mental. Actually, the mind and the emotions are related.
Right.
So what you experience emotionally is the mind it's the mind communicating to you. So for you to know how the mind is, look at the emotions.
Yeah.
So the emotions are the body's way of communicating what is in the mind. Yeah, so that is now what you call the psychological.
That's one and the same thing.
Yes. So the only way I can know your mindset and your belief system is if I look at your emotions, the way you behave. Yes.
Okay, that's amazing. So what are the potential childhood traumatic events, experiences, and name a couple?
Okay.
Yeah.
So the experiences or what can cause childhood trauma, we have the major things, the ones that like abuse.
Yeah.
So abuse is physical, sexual, emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah, those basic ones. So if the home that you grew up in had any forms of those, any of those forms of abuse, so you're likely to carry the wound or the trauma into adulthood or teenage. Number two, divorce, especially if it was divorce or separation, especially if it was messy. Violence in the home. So those are the obvious ones. Death of a parent.
Right.
Yeah, death of a parent or the caregiver. All right. So, and there are some homes also where actually those ones are now the major ones that we can identify, or if there was an alcoholic or someone or one of the parents abused drugs in the home. So all those are the major causes of trauma.
How about negligence?
That's now where I was coming from. I was actually there is this other form of trauma that is subtle, that is quiet.
Yeah.
So we said last time we spoke about the emotional needs of a child.
Right.
The child wants to be loved unconditionally. The child wants to be seen, heard, and accepted or understood for who they are.
Yeah.
So you can grow up in a loving home.
Right.
Okay, or a home where, when you look at it from the outside, it looks okay. You're going to school, you're eating well, the parents are there. But once the emotional needs are not met, it means that you'll also suffer the trauma, like what you are talking about, negligence.
Right.
And negligence can come in the form of the capitalistic culture we have now, the hustle culture. So the parents are out there hustling.
Absentee.
Yes, their parents out there hustling, working, doing biashara, building a neighbor, so they are never present at home. So it means that there is no, and most likely there is no other person to nurture the child or provide those emotional needs. So that also brings a lot of trauma.
And mostly that's the work of a parent. So if a parent is not there, that means then there is a gap.
There is a gap.
Yeah.
The same way in physical illness, you find that if something is not right, there is physical illness. So even in the emotional trauma, it's like that. The childhood trauma, it's like that. So you find that if the basic needs of love,
Right.
attention, care, attachment are missing, it means that it will manifest as trauma. So those are what we normally call in psychology now. When people grow up, you find people have abandonment wounds.
Yeah.
Yes, daddy issues, mommy issues. Yes, so all those are as a result of the child did not get the right attachment with the mother or the father when they were young, especially the first 3 years when the child needs a lot of care.
Right.
You know, so that there is no parent there.
Yeah.
So that can also bring the wounding.
Yeah. And there's this notion that the hustler parent nowadays has. I have to look for money, which is true.
Yes.
Okay, because you guys have to, you can't
pay
eat air.
bills. Yes.
Bills are there, school is there, you know, and the care bit also needs the money bit. Okay, so at the end of the day, you realize that they prefer, we talked about it also last time, to bring material things at home and they're absent. Every parent should learn to balance.
Yes.
That is why I keep on telling women when I'm talking to them on Royalty Divine on this show that both of you cannot be absent. It is an agreement that has to be done. Yes, both of you can be working parents. Okay, you can be both of you working 8 hours in an office or so set up, but as a mother you have to always come back home on time to take care and to nurture on these children, even if daddy will not be there.
Yes,
like
at least
100%.
Yes.
One parent should be there, and since the mother is the nurturer,
Yes.
is the one that should always make sure to be present at home. Kulea,
Yes.
unaona,
Yes.
yeah, to bring up, not, you know, the parents should come out from that cocoon of being carried away by kutafuta pesa. And when you're home, again also it is presence, not at home and you're on your phone.
The children are on the phone, or
You are on the
TV.
phone, the children are on the phone, or they are on the TV, or one is in the bedroom, like most of the teenagers, that's their hideout.
Locked up there, doing whatever they want.
Yeah, whatever they are doing. And these times, you know, such a home that has money, you find yourself that parents buy televisions, gadgets. You have a computer for your homework there. So the child is locked up in the room. Mommy is downstairs. The little child is running up and down there. Kidogo amelala. So okay, the mommy came home on time. Probably she was home by 6 or by 7. But she's absent, as good as absent. So it is being at home, being a nurturer, and being present. If it is putting that phone away, it has to be put away. If it is time with the family, has to be there and enforced like a rule. Yeah. So I said the topic is deep and it's vast. So I think we must have time to discuss either of these points that we have as a point for a show.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Yes, I do.
Yes, that we can have.
We can't do it in one show. Definitely.
Yeah, we cannot do it in one show. But quickly, would you mention what are some of the effects, the psychological and physical, of childhood trauma? What are some of the effects that you know that as a professional, as a counselor, you'd look at a teenager or an adolescent or a youth and just say, pick out one thing immediately when you see them, their behavior, their emotions, the way they're acting?
I think the first one is normally mental health issues.
Right.
Which is the reason why most people come to counselors and therapists. So it could be anxiety, depression, PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
So basically those three. So by the time someone maybe comes to the professional, they are either depressed or they are suffering from various forms of anxiety, or they have the PTSD, the complex PTSD. So they are exhibiting. So mostly it's the mental health issues that really show that this person has trauma.
Would you kindly touch on them? Someone may not be understanding what PTSD is actually, and anxiety. What do you mean by anxiety? How do I know I have an anxiety issue? And the other one you've mentioned is which one?
I said complex PTSD, anxiety and depression. Those ones are the most
Depression is common.
Depression, but most of the time people loosely use depression. So sometimes someone is stressed and they will say they are depressed.
Yeah.
So depression, mostly when you come to a counselor, there are certain tests that we administer to ascertain that indeed it's depression, is not just stress.
Yeah.
Okay, but even if it's stress, we'll still find you.
Which one is bigger?
What, stress or depression?
Yeah, which one is the mother?
Actually, stress is a causative factor of depression.
It starts from stress.
Yeah, it starts from stress, then now it becomes to depression. But now the reason why it's called depression is depression is like something in
now oppressing.
Yes.
Oppressive.
So it means you have been going through all these things, but you have been depressing them, as in you have been pressing them down, you have not been expressing them. For example, you've been going through frustration, anger, abuse, whatever the case, but you have not found an outlet for them, so you have been keeping them. So that's when now it manifests as depression, because actually the meaning of depression is just pressing down. Okay.
And most of the time people confuse the two. Stress. You know, everyone is always saying, I'm stressed. I have stress. I think it's depression. So you don't even know where you lie.
You have to go to a counselor or therapist for them to ascertain that you actually have depression, because depression is a mood disorder, and it can manifest so differently to different people. It can manifest differently. So there is no like cut or clear cut way of saying that this is depression.
It is per person.
Yes, it's per person. There are some people when they are depressed, they eat a lot.
Yeah.
There are some people when they are depressed,
they don't eat.
So they lose appetite and others overeat.
Yeah.
Okay. There are some people when they are depressed, they talk a lot. They are very talkative. There are some people when they are depressed,
they are quiet.
They shut down.
And there are those who sleep.
There are those who sleep a lot, and there are also those people who suffer from insomnia. As in they don't sleep. So you see. So if you come and you say you're depressed and you're talking, maybe you're very talkative, someone else will say people who are depressed do not.
They don't talk much.
So depression just has to be
cut out per person.
To be diagnosed by whatever. But we have mentioned some of the whatever, like sleeping too much, insomnia, overeating, loss of appetite. Okay.
Anxiety. Talk about it.
Anxiety now is normally like it's also a mood disorder. So you are always anxious. You're always in a panic mode. It's like you're anticipating that something bad will actually happen. But whatever you
anticipation of something bad.
It is an anticipation of something negative or bad happening. And sometimes whatever you're anticipating, most of the time in anxiety, what you're anticipating actually does not happen.
It doesn't.
So anxiety, the root of anxiety is fear. So mostly it's fear. So you're afraid something.
Fear that has now grown.
Yes, fear that has now grown, that is now beyond normal. You know, fear, there are whatever forms of fear. There are healthy forms of fear, like when you see a dog or when you see a lion. So that one, you know, it's a flight it's a flight response. But now this fear that you are talking about, it's actually a bad fear because it's unfounded. What you're afraid of may not even actually happen. So like now there you can find someone is anxious, you're afraid, you have a teenager for example. So you suffer from anxiety that my teen is going to be involved in drugs, my teen will get into bad company.
Or like it also is an overthinking kind of?
Yes. It's an overthinking, as in the brain is working more than it should, and you're creating things that are not that are something small, you're magnifying it into a big as in what they say, you create a mountain out of a molehill. Yes, so that is what now gives you anxiety.
And now talking like a pastor, most of the time what you fear you attract.
Yes. So in fact, it's even there. It's even there. Not even leave alone the one you normally say for job. There is another one, the Murphy's law. It also operates under the same principle. That what you fear most, what you fear you attract.
Imagine.
Yes.
What?
It's also
So you start building a fear of your child in getting involved in alcohol and drugs, and then eventually you attract it.
That is what you attract. It's just even in the case of marriage. Even daddy gives that example, how you keep on telling your husband, you're always coming late, you're cheating, you have women, that the woman will come. Yes, so you have attracted. That is just the law of life. So you attract what you think about most and what you fear.
What you meditate mostly on. Okay, PTSD.
PTSD is traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
So PTSD comes, it's post-traumatic, as
Yeah.
in post a traumatic event. So for example, which real example can I give? Like when people suffered, I mean when there was a bomb blast.
Yeah, I was thinking of this.
Yes, or when people go through war,
yeah,
or if there is a fire,
yeah,
or
losing a loved one.
Losing a loved one.
Right.
Like now the example of what was happening in the schools, the way children were burning schools, the dormitory that got burned. So PTSD comes after a traumatic event.
Right.
Okay. So after a traumatic event, there is what we call in counseling debriefing. So debriefing means that you take the event and you allow the person who has gone through the traumatic event to unpack it, and you give them coping mechanisms. So it means that if after a traumatic event you don't get the debriefing or the counseling or the therapy, you have also
suppressed.
It's a depression. Now you have also added on. So the symptoms now of the PTSD will start coming out in normal life. Yeah, just almost the same as the depression.
Now with that, does it always mean that when someone goes through any trauma, any post-traumatic syndrome, you should always look for a counselor? Can you be your own counselor? Can you unpack by yourself?
Unless you have, now if someone like me, I'm a professional,
right?
I could, but it's always good to go to someone else. I think even here the pastors can come in also. Maybe if a pastor has basic counseling training, it's just someone just listening to you and telling you how was it, as in without judgment.
Open up.
Yes, open up without judgment. Just how was it? Like in the case of now a fire, someone who is just unpacking like what happened,
right? How
did the fire? How were you rescued?
How do you feel about
how did you feel seeing things getting burned? Or something like that. So once it's not done, or if someone loses a loved one, you also take them through that now, debriefing. Like how do you feel? What was you?
I think it's something that needs to be with the kind of environment that we are living right now. So many things keep on happening. And you see, of course, having to see a counselor is not everyone's first priority or first thought. So what usually will happen, you'll find someone, just assuming or throwing behind their subconscious, which now you don't know you have just thrown something behind your head that is a problem. I think people should get to a point whereby, especially in setups like churches, like
even the homes,
that people should be trained on how to do the unpacking themselves. I think that should be important, because not everyone will think of running to a counselor. And remember, it's also financially making, which going to a counselor is very important. It makes you heal wholesomely.
And then you see the counselor has the skills, because most of the time when you go to people, they'll tell you, don't worry don't worry about that thing, forget about it, it has happened, there's nothing you can change. So you invalidate what someone's feelings, what they are going through. But now but people can still be trained on that. But now the counselor listens to you non-judgmentally. Whatever you're feeling, the feelings are validated. You want to cry, most of the time, even after those post-trauma, when you try to cry, people tell you, stop crying. Which you're supposed, but the counselor will allow you to cry. Cry if you want to lie on the floor, if you want to scream. Actually, there is a certain therapy where people go to scream, as in you just want to let it out. There is a scream therapy,
right?
Where you just, or you can go. There's also a therapy where you can come and hit a pillow. You hit the pillow, you hit it until you let out
the anger,
but in a safe environment. So I think that's the importance. But people can still be trained on the basic.
The basic. Yes. I get you. And I'm not trying to steal work from counselors. I'm just trying to say these things need to
we
be.
We definitely can't handle everything, so it's also good that people have the basic skills.
Okay. We have said we will go back to every point as a topic. Okay. One day, one time, God giving us grace, because this show is once in a month. Okay, but would you quickly run through the healing process?
Okay.
This we are talking about a child, an adolescent who is now, you have all the signs, psychological, physical, they are manifesting everything. When you look at childhood trauma, they are in it and all that. How do an adult who wants an adolescent, a teenager, or a youth, or an adult get to the point whereby they can say, now I want to start my healing journey? And what is that healing journey? How do you go about it?
So in every healing journey, the first process is usually acknowledging.
Right.
Acknowledge that there is
a problem.
There is a problem. There is an issue.
Yeah.
Which is where most people don't get. So most people would rather escape.
Yeah.
But first acknowledge.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is painful. I'm suffering. I don't want to suffer anymore. I want to get help. So acknowledging and accepting.
Yeah.
And acknowledging and accepting means that you own it, especially if you are an adult. It's not a blame. You're not blaming your parents or your caregivers or your nurturers.
Yeah.
There is no blaming here.
And that's most of the time. Many people go to the blame game.
The person you're blaming already has their own load that they are dealing with.
And most probably they're not even alive.
And even if they're alive, they will never admit, because you also have this thing of parents thinking that they are perfect and they did their best.
I did my best.
Yes. So opening up that conversation of you wounded me, you hurt me, may not really may not work. That is why you normally say that you accept the apology that you did not get. You see, there is normally such a saying. So accepting the apology you did not get. So as an adult especially, take responsibility. Realize that, wow, those things happened to me. I acknowledge, I accept, and I want to heal. I want to work on them. Now, from that acknowledging and accepting is when you start unpacking the trauma. That is where now the counselors come in, therapy comes in. So we have said what you can do therapy in any form. There are many types of therapy. So,
mention one.
Of course, there is a spiritual. Even what you guys do is also part of therapy. There is also psychotherapy. Some people actually need need drugs just to calm their system as they work on the issues. So you can also see a psychiatrist or a mental health specialist if the symptoms are severe, so damning that you can't operate under normal life. As in, you can't operate normally. So some people go to see a health professional. Then you also have now things that you can do on your own therapy. So one of them would be like journaling. Most people find relief through journaling. Just it's nothing technical, just writing how you're feeling. So today I woke up. Some people actually find relief journaling every day. So every day today I was sad, this happened. So, and keep your journal. So that way you're able to track your emotions. All right. There's also the spiritual bit, what we normally call meditation. In the metaphysical world, meditation is a place of no mind, as in they try to quiet the mind. But for us spiritual people, meditation is now reading scripture. Daddy teaches us that so well. You read scripture, you memorize, and then you meditate. Okay? So it means that if you grew up feeling that you are not good enough, you are not worthy,
get a scripture.
Get scriptures. Get not even one. Get many scriptures that tell you of your identity.
And your worth.
Your identity in God, in Christ. So that is what you constantly meditate on. So when those thoughts come, like you're not good enough, you're not lovable, I don't love you, you are not worthy, and you counter them with
the word of God.
With the word of God. So that's the place of now the spiritual meditation. Okay, there are also many resources on the internet that deal with childhood trauma. So find, like there's that guy I was saying is called Gabo Mate, Dr. Gabo Mate. Gabo Mate is on Facebook, is on YouTube. So he went through childhood trauma. Then at some point in his life now, he started documenting his healing journey. He has written books, he has done podcasts, and many other people. So once you follow such guys on the internet, you are able also to
know your way out.
Read books also on that particular.
That
it's what you are saying, that you attack the issue from. If you have a support system, probably someone who you know went through it and they overcame,
Right.
they can also support you through the process, your family, your
Right.
friends. Yes.
And now I want to ask on behalf of the married, you realize that you from, of course, definitely as a couple you talk, and you'll get to the point whereby maybe your husband will tell you something bits here and there, or your wife tells you some bits here and there about their childhood, and you can actually tell that this one has a root to the way this one behaves. Okay, how do you help your spouse?
So in the first,
That has without being like
an
injuring,
enabler or a fixer.
no, even like injuring more the child in them. Like, I opened up to you, I told you what I went through when I was a child. Now you're using it against me, because you see there are those now who will look at it as that, because you'll tell them the way you're behaving, the way you're violent, this thing is like transpiring from the way you came from a violent home, and they'll be like, why did I have to tell you that if you're using it against me now? And then now they become even more defensive,
and withdrawn, and now they don't
and their
open up.
actions now kabisa, like they are grounded on I'll never tell you anything, because once I told you that, now you're using it. How do you help a spouse who you realize has childhood trauma issues?
You know, Mom, there comes a point where
Yeah.
you allow people to be as they are vile wanataka. I think so.
Yeah.
Because you can't force healing on someone who is not ready for healing.
Yeah.
Healing is an internal thing, and you can't fix somebody.
Yeah.
The problem, especially most of us women do, is that we are fixers by nature.
Yeah.
So you try fixing that man, that husband of yours, which is impossible.
Right.
And it's, if he's not ready and willing to start the healing journey, there's nothing you as a woman can do. So you have two options.
Yeah.
Accept him as he is, as you give him time to get to that point of healing. Or if the situation is abusive or threatening, then now you have to make a decision on the other side. But either wife or husband, there is no one who can be able to fix the other. You can only create a safe environment for them to go through their own process of healing. You can only welcome them into that. Okay. Yeah.
Now maybe pray.
Yes,
pray for them.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's very important.
Yeah, pray for them to for their eyes to open up to maybe maybe that day you're going to talk to them, you just pray over the issue.
And also, you as a woman, you also be very, especially if you're the woman now, be very mindful of the language that you use to, because human beings naturally don't want to be told that they have a problem. Yeah, so you also have to approach it in a very
wise way.
You also pray for wisdom in that case also.
Yeah.
Yes, pray for wisdom on how you're going to approach the issue without judging, because already someone who is going through childhood trauma, it means that already when they were growing up, they went through a lot of judgment. So anytime you try to point out a mistake or a failure, defense, they look at it as judgment. So now you as the wife, you come in now again, you're trying to judge me, and I left judgment growing up. So you will find that there is a lot of collision. So the best you can do is, of course, what you have said, pray, create a loving environment for them to go through that. And it means also for you as a wife, you also should have unpacked your own trauma.
Or be in the process.
Yes, or you also you do the thing together. So you're healing and growing together. So that can work.
Wow, that's amazing. I love every bit of it, because the mature man that we see today was a child someday. The mature woman that we are seeing now here was a child at some point. And I believe at some point everyone just underwent one form or the other of childhood trauma. So what you need to see is realize, as you have said, on the healing journey, you need to map up or pick out what could be the thing that you went through as a child that could be manifesting unconsciously in your life right now, that could negatively affect your children. And since this setup that we are in majorly is for the adults and the teenagers and the youth, I want parents to be so alert on this. Okay, it is, we are here, yes, we are talking about how you can be able to help yourself, but you look at the help for yourself as beneficial to your children, so that you can become a better parent. As we raise children, we raise a generation of healthy, emotionally, physically. You said the psychological is
and you're not passing on.
Yeah, you're not passing on any negativity,
any trauma,
any trauma that came from you, because we said last time, you find that it passed on from grandma. Grandma passed it on to your mom, and then your mom passed it on to you, and now you are passing it on consciously or unconsciously, the trauma to your child. So this topic, as much as it may touch on the youth and adolescents and the teenagers, majorly is for the parents to awaken to the fact that you need to unpack, you need to handle, you need to identify your childhood traumas that could be affecting your parenting. And then once you have handled them, definitely you're bringing healing already to the children that you're raising. You'll raise very healthy children who tomorrow will not pass on the same thing to the next generation.
Yes.
So that's how I want you to look at it majorly and most importantly. And again, we are going to pick out some of the points that we are now going to handle as a program, as a show on its own, because I felt we rushed through so much.
Yes, we did.
There was a lot of download. Okay, we get on a topic that we can handle on every one of the points, so that we handle everything wholesomely. Parting shot on childhood trauma.
Parting shot, let's just heal. Let's just normalize healing.
Right.
Normalize therapy.
Yeah.
Normalize seeking help. Accepting that there is dysfunction in every family.
Yeah.
There is no perfect family.
That's the thing.
And however your family is, don't try to paint a delusional image that your family was perfect. Accept that things happened as you were growing up. You are carrying on the same issues to your current family, to your current children, and just decide that now this has to stop.
Right.
Normalize seeking for help. Help is available everywhere.
Everywhere.
If you're open, once you open the door, then now the help will come. I think that's the thing I would say, because the major problem is most people don't acknowledge or accept that there is an issue that needs to be handled. We would rather be hiding in addictions, escaping to the phone, to relationships, to substances, to shopping, to eating, rather than
ignorance also.
Or
Mommy, I'm okay. I don't have a problem, fine.
Yeah, or even over spiritualizing
Everything. Yeah.
because we don't. It's painful, but healing is. Let me just be honest. Healing is painful,
Right.
Because it's like that. Even a physical wound, first you have to scrub. So that now you start healing. So healing is painful, but it's better you go through the pain of healing than you go through lifelong pain of the physical, the mental, the emotional,
and the drowning, because it becomes like
downward spiral.
Yes,
and then you're also passing, so your relationships are crappy, your parenting is crappy. It also affects your performance at work, your finances.
As
so
a
you
person,
find that
you're not happy with yourself.
Everything in your life is just crumbling down. So instead of waiting for you to hit that rock bottom or die early, you'd rather seek for help early.
Normalize accepting that there could be a problem.
Yes.
This has been Royalty Divine Women's Show, and I want you, before we end, you go to my YouTube channel, go to my TikTok accounts, Instagram, Facebook, and do the needful right there. If it is subscribing, subscribe. If it is sharing, share. If it is following, follow. All right? The names are on my accounts are Juliet Bernard Akama. And this again has been Royalty Divine Women's Show, where we build a lasting distinction. Keep watching SWAT TV, touching lives with the power of love. Shalom. God bless you.